This video is on during reading strategies, and I might have to break it up into two videos. Um, so we're still on the same Cornell notes, active reading strategies. We're done with pre-reading, so the next big idea you're going to write during reading strategies in the left-hand column. And make sure whatever notes you took on prior knowledge, activating prior knowledge, surveying text, making predictions, and then drop down and start your during reading strategy notes here. Okay, so the first thing that we obviously still need to do is annotate text. So all the time while you're reading, you're actively engaged with the text and you're annotating. And the strategy that we're going to talk about first is questioning or asking questions. And the symbol is Q. So in parentheses after the strategy, put a Q. Now, when we ask questions, it's not all the time that we're confused. It's actually that we're really understanding what's going on. Maybe more about a character, maybe more about a topic. So it's questions that pop into your head. And until you're used to applying the strategy, it might be a little bit difficult at first. You have to force yourself to question. And so why do we question? Because it helps us stay engaged in the text, and it elaborates, it helps us elaborate on ideas, and it helps us connect ideas. The next symbol or next strategy is confusions, noting confusions, and the symbol is question mark. So for this one, you really are confused. So it's where you're reading along and then all of a sudden you don't know what's going on. And you have to repair your comprehension. So what do? Most of the time we can do when we're confused. We can put that question mark and note why we're confused. And then when we come and talk about text in class, or you go and talk to about a text to an instructor or your teacher, you can actually go back to those question marks and talk about your confusions. But it's really important that they're clarified, they're cleared up. And so we have to make sure that we're noting them. The next strategy is one of the most difficult things for students to do, most difficult strategy for students to apply. It's making inferences. Making inferences, and the symbol is I. On Educat, you will see a making inferences link. I'm going to click on that right now. Actually, my internet's being really slow because I'm loading all of that, and it'll take you to a link. And then the link is going to go over right now. And like I said, this is available times as you want to help you understand what inferences are and to remind you about how to make inferences. Okay, come on. I'm going to keep talking, and what do you think an inference is? It can be put into many different definitions. Some people call an inference an educated guess. But basically what you're doing is taking what you already know, clues from the text, and then you're making that educated guess. And so here are some various definitions. Again, educated guess based on logic and reasoning from known facts, or a statement about the unknown based on the known. It may be referred to, and oftentimes is, as reading between the lines or drawing conclusions. So when do I need to infer? When authors merely suggest or imply something either in writing, something visually, or something orally. So I apologize for the background. That is not a good background for this. Our tools are to know our reader's background, like what we come to the table, what we come to the reading with will help us infer. When we can understand the literal meaning of a text, image, or sound, if we understand the literal meaning, we will pick up the metaphorical meaning much more easily. If we understand the author's audience, purpose, tone, diction, all of these are tools to help us make inferences, and then our ability to make predictions. So we're going to practice really quick. I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'll provide some silence time before I go over the typical student answer. And so the story, there's this woman, and she appears to be around 35. She's in a kitchen making breakfast and she's got a frown on her face. And when she hears this little boy coming down the stairs, and he's a little tot, about 2 or 3 years old, she turns around and she puts a smile on her face and tells the little boy to sit down, and he's going to eat breakfast. And the little boy does, and he asks the woman, "Where's Swimmy?" And the woman looks at him and said, "Well, Swimmy went to Grandma and Grandpa's house. You can see Swimmy after school." And so they both proceed to eat breakfast, and the woman takes the little boy off to school. Okay? Who is the lady in the story? Now, many of you probably had an answer pop right into your head. Students have said in the past, why the mother, or the nanny, or sister, or aunt. They had a pretty good idea of who this lady was. And I never said who the lady was, but you can make some inferences. This woman is middle-aged. She's making breakfast. The little boy obviously feels very comfortable with her. When the little boy asks where Swimmy is, she says Grandma and Grandpa's. So that could be an older sister. It could very easily be his mother. Most people infer that it's mom. Then who is Swimmy? Well, Swimmy, many times, I'm guessing right away that most of you are thinking a fish. And I always ask students, well, why? I never said who Swimmy is, or even if Swimmy was a living being. And they say, well, kids are very literal. And so Swimmy would be a name that a little tot, 2 or 3-year-old, would name his fish. And then when I ask, well, where is Swimmy now? And literally, the mother or mother figure in the story said that Swimmy is at Grandma and Grandpa's. But it's usually 50-50% whether students will guess this or not, will infer this. 50% of students say, well, Swimmy's dead. And I'm like, well, why would you say that? Well, Swimmy's a goldfish. So again, that literal, like naming a pet, a pet goldfish, Swimmy, that would be something a 2 or 3-year-old would say. The mom had a frown, or the lady had a frown on her face. And so she was probably wondering what she was going to say to the little boy about his dead goldfish. And she's probably going to replace Swimmy with another fish that looked just like Swimmy. And the fish will be home from Grandma and Grandpa's, in quotes, by the end of the school day. So you just had some pretty easy practice with inferencing. Now, inferencing gets more and more difficult the more difficult the text gets. So here are some more examples, and I'm just going to go over 1 or 2 of these. So a young man is walking with a young woman hand in hand across campus. What can we infer? Almost always students say, oh, they're boyfriend and girlfriend. That's something that we could infer. An older man falls to the sidewalk, clutches his chest, and screams in pain. Right away, students infer that the man is having a heart attack. Images. Images can be a lot of fun to try to make inferences about. And so I always ask students, well, what mode is this picture? And many will take a guess that it's an advertisement, but they aren't really sure what it's advertising. The one man is holding a drink in his hand, and maybe more than one. Oh yeah, a couple people are. So they thought maybe alcohol. and many students always express their confusion about why there's an older man there with a bunch of younger people. And so when I tell my students that the older man is Tommy Hilfiger, then they go, oh, it's a clothing ad. And then I'm like, okay, so what's the purpose? What can you infer the purpose of this ad is? And they're like, well, if you wear Tommy Hilfiger clothes, you're going to have a lot of fun in the sun and you're going to look cool and be cool. And of course, that's what the advertising campaign is all about. And then there's usually red, white, and blue splashed in many of Tommy Hilfiger's advertisements. So maybe even you will be more American if you buy Tommy Hilfiger. So inferencing allows us to understand how we're being manipulated by advertisements. Okay, again, go back through this and see if you can infer the meaning behind these advertisements. This is a fun one. You have to have a little bit of background in reading with and I'll just tell you 1984 is the title of a famous novel. Of course, what can we infer from the way she was wronged in love? She's been wronged by a man. They get that inference quickly. And then I just have my works cited there. So you can see that inferencing can actually be a lot of fun to figure out, but the more difficult the text, no matter what it is, an image or a video or a written text, the more difficult it is to infer. And it's the one strategy that students never seem to want to do, but it's one of the most important, if not the most important strategy to utilize to really get to those deeper meanings in text, to synthesize multiple text, and to get to that higher order critical thinking that we all must do. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap it up for this video, and we'll do a part 2 reading strategy video.